What's going on, guys? Preacher Reads here, and I've got a confession to make. I've probably never read your favorite fantasy author.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Now, before you take the pitchforks out, let me explain why I've never read them and if I plan on reading them soon. So let's get started. All right, so here's how the video is going to work. We're going to start at 12. 12 is going to be the author that I plan on reading the least, the one that I just don't see myself getting to anytime soon. And then I'm going to explain why I haven't read them. I'm going to tell you which series or which book I would start with when I do, or if I do ever read them. And I'm also going to share a content creator or booktuber who I feel like has some good content surrounding this book, since you're probably not going to get it here anytime soon. So let's get started with number 12, and that is a giant of the genre. It is George R.R. Martin. That's right, I've never read A Song of Ice and Fire. Prior to really reading fantasy books, I did watch the show, very mixed opinions on it. It was a little much for me in terms of the gratuitous violence and the sex, but the ending was especially atrocious. I think that's a pretty common opinion, but I began to consider reading this series and just realized that, man, I already know everything that's happened within the first couple of books. And while there may be some big differences, what I've been told is that it's very, very similar. And I just don't really feel a need to dive into this big series where I have a little bit of a negative opinion overall of how it was adapted to the screen. And also, George may never finish it. And so it just hasn't been high on my list. Now, if I do ever read Martin, I probably will start with Fever Dream. Fever Dream seems like a really cool standalone vampire horror novel, and I've heard really good things about it. But I've never touched George R.R. Martin. If you're looking for some more content surrounding especially A Song of Ice and Fire, Bookborn has some great videos. You should go check out her channel, check out her stuff on A Song of Ice and Fire. Next up at number 11, we have the Sir himself, Terry Pratchett. Nope, I've never read any Terry Pratchett. This is kind of a lie. I did read Good Omens, but I'm not counting that because it isn't a standalone work. I probably won't be reading Terry Pratchett anytime soon. His humor seems to probably not be what I would enjoy. I just have so much else to read that I think is going to hit better, but I could see myself reading Terry Pratchett one day. And if I do, I will most likely start with Guards. That just seems to be where a lot of people tend to start when they have a good time with his series. So I've never read Terry Pratchett. It's really just never getting around to it, combined with feeling like maybe his humor and his direction, his philosophical concepts just don't really cohere with mine. Not to the point where I'd never read it, but it's just not near the top of my list. If you do want some really good content surrounding Pratchett's work, you should definitely check out Michael Cronk, the book guy. He's got some awesome content surrounding the series. All right, at number 10, we've got Robert Jordan. Yep, never read The Wheel of Time, never even tried. Now, I probably will sometime, but not anytime soon. I just don't feel like I have the time or the energy to dive into such a huge series. One especially that seems to have such a strong slog in some of the middle books. I mean, some of my friends who love this series still talk so badly about like books 9, 10, and 11, I think. And so it just kept me from really wanting to prioritize it at this point. But I could definitely see myself getting there one day because it is a giant of the genre. So I've never read Robert Jordan. I've never touched The Wheel of Time. Probably something that I should fix one day if I want to call myself a fantasy fan, but I don't see it happening anytime soon. If you want to check out some cool content from an awesome creator, Library of a Viking has some really good videos on The Wheel of Time. Go ahead and check that out. All right, next up at number 9, we've got Tad Williams. Yep, I have never read any Tad Williams, even though I own this absolutely gorgeous set for the Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn trilogy. Just a series I didn't really know much about until I got these copies. I'd heard of Tad. Obviously, it's much more classic fantasy, and it's just something that I've never dove into, something I've never considered taking that series on. Now that I own this set, I will definitely be reading it, but I don't see it happening this year. I don't see it happening anytime soon, just because of all the awesome newer series that I want to stay up to date with, that I want to read along with you guys. But I tell you, that series from The Broken Binding makes me want to read it more. And so I may dive in the next few years just so I can look at those copies. If you want some really awesome content on Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn specifically, check out Captured in Words videos. They're awesome. All right, next up at number 8, I have never read John Gwynne. I know. I feel like at this point, not reading John Gwynne and having a booktube channel that talks a lot about fantasy is a little bit of like heresy. But I'm sorry, I'm gonna get to it pretty soon. I think this year I'll at least read one John Gwynne novel. The only reason I haven't started it yet is just because I've had so many other series to do. There is nothing about Gwynne's work, about what I've heard about Gwynne's work, that is keeping me from reading it. It's simply that I just have not gotten to it. And to be honest, I don't know which series I should start with. It seems like people are mixed on that. I would love for you to tell me in the comments where you think I should start with John Gwynne. Also, if you want some more John Gwynne content, you should definitely check out Philip Chase's channel. He has some great John Gwynne reviews, conversations, and just content surrounding his various series. Next up at number 7, we have the queen of prose herself, Robin Hobb. Yep, never started Hobb, and it's for the same exact reason as Gwynne. I've just not started many series since I kind of began the first 6 or 7 big fantasy series that I'm currently working through, and I need to get some of those done before I dive into another series like Robin Hobb's gigantic series. Now, I know that those can be broken up into a couple trilogies and sets of 4, and so that makes it a little bit easier for me to go after, and I'll probably start Farseer in the next 5 to 6 months, I think. I'm excited to see what Hobb has to offer. I think it's going to be for me. I'm fine with slow burn fantasy as long as the characters are working. But I know I need to read Robin Hobb, and so it's not one I'm putting too far on the back burner. Should be happening this year. I'm excited to see what she has to offer. If you're looking for more content surrounding Robin Hobb, I would definitely check out Joanna Reed's channel. She has some great videos. Next up at number 6, we have R.F. Kuang. I have never read any R.F. Kuang, and I definitely will be soon because I think I'm going to read Catabasis on release. But one of the reasons I've never read R.F. Kuang is because I've just heard some mixed reviews about her different series. I don't really know where to start. I've heard some things about books like Babel that just don't seem to be for me. I've heard the word boring kind of tossed around, academic kind of tossed around, and I just don't know if I'm for that right now. Now, I may be soon, and I definitely will go towards her work if I'm looking for something like that, but I just haven't been in that mood. I plan on reading Catabasis on release though, so this has got to be higher up on my list because that is coming out this year. You tell me, where should I start with R.F. Kuang if I don't start at Catabasis? If I try to read her prior to the release of that novel, where would you have me start? And definitely check out Petrick Leo if you're looking for more content surrounding R.F. Kuang. His videos are awesome. All right, guys, before we dive into the top 5, I'm going to give you a few honorable mentions. One that I really wanted to include on this list, mostly to trigger you, is Dune, but Dune isn't a fantasy novel, but I've never read Herbert. I've never read Dune or any of its sequels. I've actually never watched the movies either. And so I should probably do that someday, but that's an honorable mention because it's not fantasy. Next up, 2 guys that are talked about all the time, but it's classic fantasy. It's just not on my radar right now. And that is Guy Gavriel Kay and Raymond E. Feist. Probably should get to them at some point. They seem to be a staple in the genre, but I'm just not that interested right now in diving into their work. And last but not least on our honorable mentions, just to trigger the YA fantasy lovers, I've never read Riordan and I've never read Paulini. I'm sorry, it just wasn't something I was reading when I was that age. And so I've never read Eragon. I've never read Percy Jackson. I know it's probably a sin in the fantasy booktube community, but I've never read them. Maybe I will one day. I just don't have a lot of desire to dive into YA fantasy that doesn't give me that nostalgia bite like reading Harry Potter or something that I read when I was younger. All right, it is top 5 time, and I'm definitely reading these 5 authors this year. So let's talk about number 5. Number 5 is the guy that comes up when anybody talks about mixing fantasy and horror, and that is Richard Swan. I have never read any Richard Swan, which probably surprising given the fact that I'm a horror first guy, and he's the dude everyone talks about when they want to talk about having good horror in your fantasy. But I've just not gotten there. Like I said, I have so many series ongoing, and it was not one that I started early in my fantasy journey, but I'm gonna get there soon. I need to get there. It sounds like it's right up my alley, and I'm obviously gonna start with the Empire of the Wolf trilogy. If you want some good content on Richard Swan, Mike's Book Reviews is the guy for it. All right, next up at number 4, one that is beloved by the BookTube community, that scares me to death, but I need to start, and that is Steven Erikson. I have never read any Steven Erikson. I've never cracked Malazan, and I want to really badly. The more it's talked about, the more I want to start it, but man, it is a bear, and it looks so daunting, but I'm excited to get there, and I think I'm going to read Gardens of the Moon this year. I just need you in the comments pestering me constantly to get to Gardens of the Moon. If you want more content on Malazan, there's so many channels, but I tell you, a guy who loves Malazan, who's working through some of the secondary novels, is Nerd Level Rising, and he's got some great content on the Malazan series. I need to read Steven Erikson. At number 3, we've got Fonda Lee. That's right, I own this beautiful set of books and have never touched them. I know I need to read the Greenbone Saga. I know that it is a staple in the genre. My buddy Dave read it and loved it. I need to get there, and I will soon. It's just that I need to finish a couple other series beforehand, but there is nothing keeping me from trying this series. I've heard only good things. I'd like to also consider reading some of her standalone works and her new works that are coming out this year. I think she has 2 that are coming out this year, but man, everything I've heard about Fonda Lee has been positive and sounds like something that I would really enjoy. It sounds like it has some unique qualities that will separate it from some of these other series that I've been reading. And so I'm going to be reading it soon, and I'm going to be reading these gorgeous editions, but I haven't read Fonda Lee yet. If you're interested in more content on Fonda Lee, you got to check out Tori Talks channel. She has an interview and some great reviews and conversations about this series. I'm sure she'll be reading more Fonda Lee in the future, so go ahead and check that out. At number 2, we've got an up-and-comer, a guy who has just been blowing away the fantasy booktube community, and that is Ryan Cahill. I haven't started The Bound and the Broken yet, but I need to. It's going to happen this year. I would like to be completely caught up by the end of 2025. And so as soon as I'm done catching up with Sun Eater, this is my next big series to catch up on when it comes to series that I feel like I need to get in the conversation. And this is one that I need to do that. Now, I'm not going to lie. Some of those later books are chunky, and that's a little scary. And it's a little worrying that I've heard that the first book is not necessarily as good as the rest of them, but that's okay. It's understandable, and I know that I'm still gonna love this series. And so I'm gonna be diving into this soon, probably within the next couple of months. As soon as I can get done with Sun Eater and caught up there, I'm gonna be diving in. And I know that another book in this series comes out, I believe, at the end of this month or next month. So I need to get caught up with Ryan Cahill. I actually feel bad that I haven't started this because it's such a conversation starter within the community, and it's such an important series right now within the community. But I'm going to be diving in soon. If you want more content around this series, Dominish Books has some great videos and reviews on the series that you should check out. And last but not least, the #1 author in the fantasy space that I'm going to be reading the soonest that I have never touched, and that is Gene Wolfe. Now, I know Gene Wolfe in this series specifically isn't necessarily just straight fantasy, but I think he counts. And I'm going to be reading this super soon with a bunch of other creators, and I'm excited to do it. It sounds dense and confusing. It sounds like a lot, but I think I'm ready for that task. Gene Wolfe is a religious guy. I've heard that his Christian faith is weaved into his novels expertly, and I'm excited for that. I've never touched any of his work, and we're definitely going to be starting here in the next couple of months, and you're going to be seeing some videos coming out about it. You're going to be seeing a book club with a lot of creators that you know, and I'm stoked to read it with them so they can help me understand it, because I've heard that it is a little bit of a daunting task, but I'm stoked to finally get to Gene Wolfe. If you want to check out some awesome Gene Wolfe content, you need to check out Jimmy at the Fantasy Network. He's got some great videos on it, as well as Samwise, who is going to be helping me through this series for sure. Thank you in advance, Sam, for that. But I'm excited to dive into some of these. Some of the other ones I'm just not as excited for. Maybe we'll never pick up. Please head down to the comments and roast me for not reading your favorite author. Who on this list do you feel like it's the most egregious sin that I have not read yet? And who should I prioritize? Do you agree with my priorities list, or would you change it up? let me know in the comments. Make sure that you go hop into the Book Street Boys Discord. It is an awesome community. Me and 6 other BookTube creators have created together to foster community over there on Discord. You can find the link to that down in the description. If you would like to support me further, the best way to do that is my Amazon wish list, which is all self-published novels. For every 3 that I get, you guys will have an opportunity to win a self-published novel. We're actually running one of those giveaways right now over on my Instagram. Instagram is @PreacherReads, and you can win a self-published novel there as well. And if you are interested in supporting me, that's the best way to do it. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. Hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you guys for hanging out. Make sure you like, subscribe, share this video with your friends if you think they would like it. And maybe in the next couple of months, you'll see some of these names get knocked off the list and I'll have read them. See you guys later.